November 20th, 1943, 5:42 a.m. off the coast of Betio Island, Tarawa Atoll. The horizon flickers white. Battleship guns from USS Maryland and USS Colorado erupt in rolling thunder, their 16-inch shells screaming over the black water. The concussion slams into your chest even from miles offshore. The lagoon ahead glows orange in the pre-dawn gloom as explosions walk across a strip of sand no longer than 2 miles. Inside a small wooden landing craft, 21 U.S. Marines grip their rifles in silence. The boat rocks violently. Diesel fumes mix with salt spray. A coxswain, barely visible beneath his steel helmet, leans over the wheel of a Higgins boat, officially designated LCVP, Landing Craft Vehicle Personnel. Its thin plywood sides shudder with every nearby blast. The Marines sit knee to knee, boots braced against the deck, rifles between their legs. Second Lieutenant William Hawkins of the 2nd Marine Division stares at the ramp in front of him. Beyond it, somewhere past the reef and smoke, lies Betio, fortified by Rear Admiral Keiji Shibasaki's 4,800-man garrison. Concrete bunkers, 8-inch naval guns, interlocking machine gun nests, years of preparation. The bombardment lifts. For a brief second there is silence. Then the lagoon erupts. Japanese artillery begins firing from hidden positions that survived the shelling. Water geysers upward around the approaching craft. Shrapnel rattles against wood hulls like a storm of iron hail. The thin steel ramp at the bow vibrates with each near miss. The Higgins boat pushes forward, its shallow draft meant to carry it across obstacles that would stop deeper vessels. But the reef is still hundreds of yards from shore, and the tide is lower than expected. The propeller grinds to a halt. Around them, other boats lurch and stall on coral. Marines begin climbing over the sides, plunging into chest-deep water. Machine guns open from the tree line, Type 92s spitting methodical bursts. The lagoon churns red as bullets snap past. The bathtub boats, some had called them, fragile, expendable. Now they are the only thing standing between thousands of Marines and annihilation. Coxswain Ernest Red Trexler guns the engine again, trying to grind over the coral. The hull scrapes violently, wood splintering. Somehow, impossibly, the boat lurches forward a few more yards. Hawkins turns back to his men. "Stand by." The ramp crashes down. The world becomes noise. Marines surge into waist-deep water under a wall of fire. Men fall before taking 3 steps. Others keep moving, rifles held overhead. You can almost feel the sting of salt water and cordite in the air, the weight of soaked webbing pulling at your shoulders. Behind them, more Higgins boats approach, their flat bows slamming against coral, coxswains refusing to turn back despite the fire. This is amphibious warfare, raw, unfiltered, and brutal. And yet, just a few years earlier, many in the Navy had dismissed the very craft now carrying the assault. They had laughed at Andrew Higgins. As the first wave struggles toward a seawall lined with Japanese defenders, one question hangs in the smoke-filled air. Without these fragile boats, would any of them even reach the beach? New Orleans, Louisiana, 1938. The smell of cypress wood and engine oil hangs thick in the humid air. Andrew Jackson Higgins stands on the deck of a strange little boat cutting across a Louisiana bayou. It is narrow, flat-bottomed, and powered by a rear-mounted engine that allows it to skim over mudflats and swamp debris without fouling its propeller. Oilmen use it to reach drilling sites where deeper vessels can't go. Higgins grins as the boat slides clean over a submerged log. "Anywhere a jeep can go," he liked to say, "this boat can go." But when he first pitched a military version of his shallow-draft craft to the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps, many officers were unimpressed. They had battleships, they had cruisers, they had doctrine built around decisive fleet engagements. They did not believe in small wooden boats storming defended beaches. Some senior naval planners argued future wars would be decided at sea, not on sand. The Marine Corps, still fighting for relevance between wars, lacked both funding and influence. Higgins' proposal, a landing craft with a bow ramp allowing troops to disembark directly onto shore, was seen as radical, even unnecessary. One Navy official reportedly dismissed the idea as impractical fantasy. Wooden hulls, thin armor, a front ramp that could jam under fire. They laughed. Higgins did not. In 1941, Captain Victor Brute Krulak of the Marine Corps visited Higgins' yard. Krulak had studied Japanese amphibious operations in China and knew the U.S. would need specialized landing craft if war came to the Pacific. He showed Higgins photographs of a Japanese Daihatsu landing craft with a bow ramp. Higgins studied the images for a moment. "I can build a better one," he said. Within weeks, the LCVP prototype was ready, 36 feet long, powered by a 225-horsepower gray marine diesel engine, capable of carrying 36 troops or a jeep and 12 men. Most importantly, it could run up onto a beach and drop its steel bow ramp in seconds. Tests impressed the Marines. The Navy, still cautious, began placing orders. Then December 7, 1941 happened. Pearl Harbor changed everything. Suddenly, the Pacific was not a distant theory. It was a battlefield stretching thousands of miles, and Japan had fortified island after island with airfields and artillery. To take them back, American forces would need to land directly against prepared defenses. Battleships could bombard. Aircraft carriers could strike. But neither could deliver a rifleman onto sand. Only small boats could do that. Higgins Industries exploded in size. From a few hundred workers, it swelled to more than 20,000. Women, soon nicknamed Rosie the Riveters, assembled hulls in massive sheds along the Mississippi River. Wooden frames were shaped, engines mounted, ramps welded into place with astonishing speed. By 1943, Higgins was producing landing craft at a pace once thought impossible. General Dwight D. Eisenhower would later say, "Andrew Higgins is the man who won the war for us." But in November 1943, that verdict had not yet been written. Because now at Tarawa, the theory was meeting reality. And reality was chaos. Back in the lagoon, stalled boats burn. Coxswains reverse engines, then push forward again into gunfire. Some craft take direct hits, wooden hulls splintering, fuel igniting in sudden bursts of flame. Yet more keep coming. Marines cling to the sides of LCVPs as they crawl over coral. The shallow draft, once dismissed as gimmick, becomes salvation. Where deeper craft would ground far offshore, Higgins' boats push closer. Not close enough, but closer. And closer means survival. Still, as men fall in the surf and Japanese defenders rake the beach from reinforced bunkers, doubt creeps in. Was the pre-invasion bombardment too short? Were the defenses underestimated? Had American planners believed their own optimism? The Marines who reached the seawall flattened themselves against sand and concrete, pinned down by crossfire. Smoke drifts low across the beach. Radios crackle with fragmented reports. The landing is hanging by a thread. If the next waves cannot get through, if the boats cannot keep delivering men, the entire assault could collapse into the sea. And somewhere in New Orleans, Andrew Higgins waits for word from the Pacific. The world is about to find out whether his bathtub boat is a brilliant innovation or a wooden coffin. Betio Island, 9:17 a.m. The sun is fully up now, merciless and white against the Pacific sky. Smoke drifts low across the lagoon, mixing with the stench of burning fuel and cordite. The reef, once invisible beneath turquoise water, has become a graveyard of stalled landing craft. But the Higgins boats keep coming. Wave after wave. Some coxswains gun their engines straight into fire, knowing their plywood hulls cannot stop a single heavy round. Others zigzag, trying to throw off Japanese gunners sighting down Type 96 machine guns from reinforced bunkers. The steel ramps slam down again and again, and each time men pour out. Major Michael "Red Mike" Ryan of the 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines, is among those struggling forward through the surf, water up to his chest, pack dragging him down. Around him, Marines from the 8th and 2nd Regiments fight to stay upright as bullets snap inches above the waterline. You can almost feel the coral cutting through canvas leggings, the weight of a soaked M1 Garand pulling at your hands, the terrifying awareness that the only cover ahead is a low seawall barely 3 feet high. Yet they move, because behind them more Higgins boats approach. And if those boats turn back, the men in the water are finished. Japanese gunners quickly realize the ramps are the key. They concentrate fire on the moment the bow drops, trying to catch Marines before they can scatter. Several boats take direct hits as the ramp falls, men collapsing inside the hull before their boots even touch sand. Still the ramps fall. Again and again. Lieutenant Hawkins rallies a small group near a breach in the seawall. With grenades and sheer aggression, they assault a fortified Japanese position that has been raking the beach for hours. Hawkins moves forward under point-blank fire, silencing one bunker after another. He will be posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. But in that moment there is no thought of medals, only momentum. By midday, small footholds begin to form. Not breakthroughs, footholds. Clusters of Marines huddled behind wreckage, using destroyed Higgins boats as impromptu cover. The very craft once mocked now serve as barricades against machine gun fire. Commanders aboard USS Maryland and other ships offshore receive fragmented reports. Heavy casualties. Units scattered. Progress minimal. For a moment, some wonder if the assault has failed. Tarawa was meant to prove the new amphibious doctrine, to show that American forces could storm a heavily fortified island and win. Instead, it looks like slaughter. Yet something crucial has happened. Despite the reef, despite the miscalculated tide, despite the murderous fire, thousands of Marines are on the beach. Not offshore. Not stranded in deep water. On the sand. And that is because the Higgins boats, light, maneuverable, relentless, kept delivering them. By late afternoon, reinforcements from later waves begin landing with more coordination. Engineers drag flamethrowers across the reef. M4 Sherman tanks, carried by larger LCMs, grind ashore to support the infantry. The tide inches higher, and with each rising foot of water, the LCVPs can push just a little closer. Japanese Admiral Keiji Shibasaki had boasted that it would take 1,000,000 Americans 100 years to conquer Tarawa. By nightfall on the first day, his men are still fighting. But the island is no longer secure. The Higgins boat has done what critics said it could not. It has forced open the door. And now, as darkness settles over Betio and Marines dig shallow, fighting positions in blood-soaked sand, one realization begins to dawn. If these boats can survive Tarawa, what else can they conquer? Night falls hard over Betio. There is no gentle twilight in the tropics, only a sudden drop into blackness. The air stays heavy, thick with smoke and the metallic scent of blood. The lagoon still burns in places, shattered landing craft flickering like broken lanterns on the reef. On the beach, the Marines hold a strip of sand barely a few hundred yards deep. They dig with entrenching tools with helmets with bare hands. The coral is stubborn, sharp as broken glass. Japanese snipers fire intermittently from shattered palm trunks and half-buried bunkers. Every muzzle flash in the dark feels close, too close. You can almost hear the breathing, ragged, exhausted, of men who have been under fire for 12 straight hours. Colonel David Shoup, commanding the 2nd Marine Regiment, radios a blunt message back to the fleet. Casualties many, percentage dead not known, combat efficiency we are winning. It is not optimism, it is defiance. Offshore, Higgins boats continue running supplies through darkness. Ammunition, water, more Marines. Coxswains navigate by burning wreckage and tracer fire, weaving between coral heads they cannot see. Some boats return riddled with holes, pumps working frantically to keep them afloat. No armor, no heavy shielding, just wood, steel ramps, and nerve. Dawn, November 21st. The second day begins with renewed bombardment. Naval gunfire crashes inland as Marines prepare to push forward yard by yard. This is no sweeping maneuver, no elegant flanking movement. This is bunker by bunker. Flamethrower teams advance behind riflemen. Engineers place satchel charges against reinforced concrete. Japanese defenders fight to the last, emerging suddenly from hidden spider holes to fire pistols or detonate grenades. In the lagoon, the tide is finally higher. Now the Higgins boats surge closer than on the first day. Ramps drop almost directly onto sand instead of reef. Reinforcements land faster. Coordination improves. Momentum builds. The difference is visible. What had been a desperate foothold becomes a grinding advance. By midday, M4 Shermans from Company C, 2nd Tank Battalion, clatter forward, their 75 guns blasting open pillboxes that had held for 24 hours. Marines move behind them, clearing debris and silencing resistance. Every yard costs blood, but every yard is gained. Admiral Shibasaki is killed by naval gunfire during the fighting. Japanese command fractures. Pockets of resistance remain lethal, but the illusion of invincibility is gone. On November 23rd, after 76 hours of continuous combat, Betio is declared secure. More than 1,000 Marines lie dead. Over 2,000 are wounded. Nearly the entire Japanese garrison is annihilated. The cost shocks the American public when photographs emerge, images of bodies in surf, of wrecked landing craft piled against coral. Tarawa forces the nation to confront the brutal reality of island warfare. But beneath the horror lies a hard truth. The amphibious assault worked. Not cleanly, not easily. But it worked. And at the center of it all were thousands of Higgins boats, LCVPs delivering men, ammunition, tanks, hope, through reefs and fire and chaos. General Holland Smith, overseeing Pacific amphibious operations, studies the lessons carefully. Bombardments must be longer. Tidal intelligence must improve. Coordination between naval gunfire and landing waves must tighten. But the fundamental concept, validated. Wood and steel ramps have proven stronger than doubt. And somewhere in New Orleans, Andrew Higgins receives the news. Tarawa has been taken. The bathtub boat did not fail. It endured. And now, planners are looking beyond one island. Beyond the Gilberts. Toward something even larger. Something that will require not hundreds, but thousands of Higgins boats landing at once. January 1944, Pearl Harbor. In a planning room thick with cigarette smoke and wall-sized maps, Admiral Chester W. Nimitz studies a chain of tiny red circles stretching westward across the Pacific: Kwajalein, Saipan, Tinian, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Each one a fortress. Each one surrounded by reef. Tarawa had been the test. Now came the expansion. Staff officers no longer debate whether shallow draft landing craft are necessary. The argument is over. The question is scale. How many can we produce? Someone asks. The answer is staggering. By war's end, Andrew Higgins, factories will build more than 23,000 LCVPs. Tens of thousands more landing craft of every variety, LCMs, LCTs, specialized variants, will pour from American shipyards. The Mississippi River becomes an assembly line for invasion. Eisenhower, preparing in Europe for an operation of his own, will later credit Higgins directly. Without landing craft, there is no Normandy, no mass crossing of open water under fire. But in early 1944, the Pacific remains the proving ground. Kwajalein Atoll, February 1944. This time, lessons from Tarawa are applied. Bombardment is relentless and precise. Tidal studies are meticulous. Underwater demolition teams scout reefs before the assault. When Higgins' boats surge forward, they encounter fewer surprises. The ramps drop. Marines and soldiers storm ashore with brutal efficiency. The island falls in days, not weeks. The pattern repeats across the central Pacific. At Saipan, LCVPs swarm beaches under fire from entrenched Japanese positions. At Tinian, innovative landings on narrow, unexpected beaches, accessible only because of shallow draft craft, outflanked defenders who believed terrain protected them. Again and again, the ramp slams down. And history steps forward. The Higgins boat was never glamorous. It had no towering guns, no thick armor, no dramatic silhouette against the horizon. It was plywood and steel, diesel and nerve. But it solved a problem older than warfare itself. How do you put men directly onto a hostile shore? At Tarawa, critics had watched through binoculars as those small boats pushed into chaos. They had seen them stall, burn, splinter. They had also seen them succeed. By the time American forces approach Iwo Jima in 1945, amphibious landings are no longer experimental. They are doctrine. Precision choreography between Navy and infantry. Fire and movement across water. And in the background of every operation, hundreds of Higgins boats wait in formation, bows facing land. Engines rumbling. Ramps ready. Andrew Higgins once bristled at bureaucracy, clashed with officials, and ignored convention. He was not polished, not politically smooth. But he was right. The men who laughed at the bathtub boat had imagined future wars would be decided by titans, battleships trading salvos across open seas. Instead, victory often arrived 36 feet at a time. On November 20, 1943, at 5:42 a.m. in the surf at Betio, a wooden ramp fell into history. And when Marines stepped through smoke and gunfire onto that reef-bound beach, the Pacific War began to turn, not because of a single shell or speech, but because someone had built a boat that could reach the sand. And